fam, welcome back. Today I'm reviewing episode 5 of the Traitors. This episode was really good. So, they end up deciding to murder Bernie. And of course, it gets blocked because he got a shield last week.
Fire the shield.
Oh my God.
Which is all Peter's plan. So he done fell right into Peter's trap. Dan should have just listened to Parvati and Phaedra. They tried to tell him. Parvati told him, when Peter told you that it was a trap, he was lying, he was trying to set you up. So why don't we just be safe and get rid of somebody in-house? Dan did not listen to them. So, that's on him. They get to brunch. Everybody gets to brunch. Bernie tells them that, he received the death warrant, but he had a shield. So, of course, he's not going anywhere. Peter is ecstatic because his plan worked. The traitors walked right into his trap. So he reveals this plan at brunch. And he pretty much thinks the traitors are CT, Dan, and Parvati, but he doesn't really suspect CT that much. It's really just Dan and Parvati. And he does not suspect Phaedra at all. So, after the brunch, before the next challenge, Dan and Parvati are both trying to talk to Peter to clear their name. I just feel like that just makes them look even more guilty. When you're accused of being a traitor, you just say it's not true and you say who you think it is and you kind of move on. They're trying to pull them to the side and talk to them and why do you think I'm a traitor and blah blah blah. Like they're telling on themselves, in my opinion. So they get to the next challenge, and the next challenge is they have to catapult. They have to successfully build this catapult and launch it. Now with this challenge, there is only one shield available, and the shield will only be up for grabs if they successfully complete the challenge. So they have these shield boxes throughout the challenge, and you have to bring them to the end of the challenge. Whoever brings the shield box to the end gets to compete for that one shield. So who ended up getting shield boxes were Sheree, Peter, Sandra, Trishelle, and Parvati. Which Parvati has never went for a shield before. So like I said, she's just telling on herself. Now all of a sudden, after you getting accused of being a traitor, now you want to go for a shield to make yourself look like you're not a traitor. It's just too obvious. They end up winning the challenge and adding 20K to the cash prize. And Sheree ends up winning the shield. Okay, Sheree. I don't think Sheree is on anybody's radar anyway, but that's good for her. I feel like Sheree gonna mess around and end up winning this game. Because she is just sliding through this game so effortlessly. And it could just be because we know Sheree is just, boring. She's not entertaining. So nobody's really paying attention to her. But that may work for her in this game. It doesn't really work for her on the Housewives, but it may work for her here. So after the challenge, it's time for a round table, of course, to vote on who they want to banish next. Now, this round table was mainly between Dan and Parvati. So at this point, I already knew what traitor was going home. I just didn't know which one was. So we get to this round table, and as we saw in the previews from last week, Dan has finally decided to give everybody a name of who he suspects is a traitor. And this man then tried to throw Phaedra under the bus. That was so dumb to me. If he was smart, he would have thrown Parvati under the bus because people were suspecting her already. Nobody suspected Phaedra of being a traitor. So it didn't make sense for him to do that because everyone thinks you're a traitor. So you think at this round table, you'll give them enough information to make everybody magically change their vote to Phaedra, who they all friends with? It didn't make sense to me. He should have went after Parvati. Honestly, I feel like Dan was just a little jealous of Phaedra. A lot of the gamers, or whatever they're called, the people who came from game shows, they kind of underestimated the Housewives. They looked down on them. They called them scripted actresses. So yeah, I think he was just kind of jealous of how she was pretty much playing the game better than him, which is his fault because they literally tried to warn him in the last meeting. They said, hey, listen, this is your thing. But everybody knows this is your thing, so they're on to you and you need to switch your strategy up. So because your plan didn't work, now you want to throw the very same people under the bus that tried to help you and told you that your plan wasn't working. So yeah, he basically has said that this entire time he's been suspecting Phaedra because of like her reactions. I thought this was so funny when when he was trying to build his case and he was just like, he was going through everybody that had been murdered and how she reacted to everybody getting murdered. It didn't make sense to me, honestly. He didn't build a good enough case to me. He tried to say that, she was the only one who voted for Ekin-Su at that round table. And he was like, she didn't have an explanation for it. She did have an explanation for it, which she said was that was the same night her and Janelle had got into it. And they were just confusing everybody. So that's why Phaedra ended up voting for Ekin-Su. Like, she explained that, so I'm not sure what he was talking about. He tried to say that she's never been voted for at the round table. He tried to talk about her reactions to everybody getting murdered. And he was like, when you thought Bernie was murdered, you said, not my burgerlicious. What? How does that make her suspicious? Because she said, not my burgerlicious. So that's when Kate interrupted. And she was like, so not my burgerlicious was suspicious to you?
Not my burgerlicious was problematic for you.
I mean, Dan just really presented a horrible case. Nobody was buying it. Kate was on his behind. She was not playing. She was stepping behind Phaedra. Like I said, I feel like he should have just thrown Parvati under the bus instead. He could have very easily brought up the fact that she poisoned Ekin-Su because everybody saw her give Ekin-Su a drink. They just don't really remember. So he could have very easily used that. And so then Phaedra, she has her rebuttal.
So you've been watching me from day one?
Yeah.
And she started exposing him as well. They're obviously exposing things they've done as traitors because they know.
No one's ever written a lot of people's name down. That doesn't mean they're a traitor.
Voting patterns. Can you explain the Ekin-Su vote? And then what about the breakfast murder reaction?
You're Big Brother winner not once, but twice.
Almost twice.
Well, either way, you have knowledge of this game. Let's not forget, Burgerlicious voted for you last night. And who got the murder one? Burgerlicious. Why? Because Dan thought that he was able to be murdered. Is that not correct?
So yeah, they both got exposed a little bit, but nobody believed it. I mean, it was just stupid. It was just stupid of him to try to go after Phaedra.
Loser!
So Dan ends up getting majority of the votes. And he is banished, and he reveals that he is a traitor. And finally, they have caught a traitor. Then he played a horrible game. I've been saying that since I started reviewing this show. He was just way too quiet. They tried to help him. They told him to switch his strategy up. He didn't want to listen. He was a know-it-all. And then you tried to throw the very same people under the bus that tried to help you. And he's the reason that the traitors are going at it with each other in the first place. Everybody was getting along until he started gunning for Phaedra, which again, I just feel like he is just jealous that Phaedra's playing a better game than him. So yeah, bye Dan. But this does leave Trishelle very suspicious of Phaedra because she feels like, Dan is a traitor, and the reason that he was exposing Phaedra like that is because he obviously knows that she's a traitor as well. So yeah. So now Trishelle is suspicious of Phaedra. So we will see how that goes with the next episode. So lastly, as always, it ends with the secret meeting between the traitors, which is now just Phaedra and Parvati. While they're in their secret meeting, they get a surprise visit from the host, who has informed them that this night's murder comes with a twist. Because now that Dan is no longer a traitor, they can either decide to murder somebody or they can decide to recruit somebody. And if you decide to recruit somebody, then you don't get to murder anybody that night. And also, if you recruit somebody, they can decline your offer. So Parvati and Phaedra, they talk, they strategize, and they decide that the best option would be to invite Peter into the circle of traitors, which I think is a good idea as well, because nobody's going to suspect him. He's calling people out, he's catching the traitors. I don't think anyone is going to suspect him. So I think that's smart on their end, but we just have to see if Peter actually accepts it. And yeah, the episode pretty much ends there. This was a really good episode. I already knew a traitor was gonna go home eventually. I thought it was gonna be last episode, but I knew a traitor was going home eventually because they started trying to throw each other under the bus too much, which was Dan's fault. So I'm glad he gone, but I knew that wasn't gonna last long once they started, trying to throw each other under the bus. I feel like Parvati is still low key in trouble though because Peter was just so like hell bent on the traitors being Dan, CT, and Parvati, and he was right about Dan. So I think to him that means okay, then I'm right about Parvati, and I don't really think he really suspects CT anymore like that. So, I mean, it's not looking good for Parvati. I'm not sure who the target is going to be next week, but I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be her. Well, unless he accepts this invite into the traitor circle, we'll see. But Peter, knows that he knows that he knows who these traitors are. And he's right. I mean, he had 2 out of 3. So, yeah, it's still not looking good for Parvati. And hopefully she learned from Dan not to underestimate Phaedra. She tried it and Phaedra warned her and she backed off a little bit. Now, hopefully she see, okay, Phaedra's not the one. But I am interested in seeing what Trishelle does next episode since she does suspect that Phaedra is a traitor. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting. I definitely enjoyed this episode. Y'all let me know what y'all thought about it in the comments down below. Stay happy, healthy, and all of that good stuff. And I will see y'all in my next video.